Adult stem cell therapies have been successful in treating over 70 diseases and conditions, including, but not limited to, cancers, autoimmune diseases, anemias, paralysis, stroke, Parkinson's, diabetes, and more. Adult stem cell therapies have also repaired damaged cardiac tissue after heart attack, corneal scarring, bone and cartilage deformities, and generated skin grafts grown from hair follicle stem cells. Adult stem cells, you can see the evidence speaks for itself. This fella, he's speaking from a U.S. congressional hearing on how he was cured and treated by his chronic leukemia. This little fella, Eric, I don't know what Krabbe's or Krabbe's disease is, but he was the first patient to undergo adult stem cell therapy with umbilical cord blood for his condition. This one I think is amazing because stroke is so prominent. He was treated within 24 hours with his own adult stem cells. He suffered no brain damage, no paralysis, and he was speaking again at 11 days. Again, paralysis. Parkinson's with their own cells, brain cells. I find this one particularly interesting. A complete new trachea was grown with her own stem cells, and she survived. I mean, the adult stem cell transplant saved her life and saved her lung. Yeah. Now, this lady has been to the White House a couple times with President Bush, and it's funny because there's a picture of her giving him a T-shirt that says adult stem cells, and he's kind of looking at her like, thanks. So she's a character and a miracle and just has a wonderful story about how she has been treated and cured. Multiple myeloma is a blood cancer. So when you have cancer in your blood, you're in really bad shape because blood goes everywhere in your body. And look at how ill and failing she was and how happy, cheerful, healthy she looks here. Currently, there are no clinical trials for the induced pluripotent stem cells because the process is still being developed for safety and efficacy. But scientists and doctors are hungry and working diligently to advance that. The question: if embryonic stem cell research does not work and has yet to yield any results except for the destruction of human life, and if adult stem cell therapies are tried and true, why do we see this enormous and daunting push for the proliferation, acceptance, and funding of embryonic stem cell research? We'll get to that. She got one. Our insistence as pro-lifers, our insistence that embryonic stem cell research must be jettisoned due to dismal results only motivates the scientists to work more diligently toward results and benefits. Our cries of enough is enough cannot match their claims of not yet but soon. Scientists and doctors, they sell false hope and dreams to the masses, and particularly to the ones who are suffering with diseases and other conditions. The doctors and scientists rely on the fact that we don't understand the science or the terms, and they change the terms on us. We hear about availability. We constantly hear that the so-called leftover embryos in the concentration can at IVF clinics will be discarded anyway. So the embryos are readily available for research, and these little tiny humans are just waiting to be killed. Well, that's a lie. The RAND study in 2002 surveyed all the IVF clinics and found about 400,000 embryos were remaining in IVF clinics. 400,000 humans, frozen. Of the 400,000, only 2.2% were designated for destruction by the parents. So this lie about we have all these IVF embryos just waiting is not true. Some parents want to donate them so that other infertile couples can adopt these embryos and have a baby, like JJ and Tracy did. Some parents haven't made any decisions, so these poor little embryonic humans are in limbo. Some parents are saving them for future family building. So there are not a massive amount of embryonic humans just waiting to be killed. Actually, most of them, 392,000 of the 400,000, are in fact waiting for future family building. There is not an abundance waiting to be thawed and killed. There is, however, an abundance of money that will flow once the process of embryonic stem cell research is perfected or even almost perfected. Can you imagine the government funding, the financial incentives, and that will inundate the science and biotech industries once the process of making human life in the laboratory is perfected? This is a diagram that shows that adult stem cell is still funded, but you can also see that human embryonic stem cell research is increasing, and it's increasing rapidly by the government funding because the private investors have pulled out. The private investors who invested in the science and biotech realize it's a complete and total waste of their money, and it is extremely expensive. So the biotech industry is desperate for government funding at all levels. Your stem cells belong to you, and therefore no one can patent or control your stem cells without your consent. Embryos are harder to come by than adult stem cells, and the embryos donated to science or manufactured in the lab belong to the biotech companies, and they're controlled by them. So enormous pressure is growing to create embryo farms to secure a plentiful source because scientists don't own us and they cannot patent our stem cells. This Harvard scientists realized that the golden goose for them is the state funding. Another reason that we have this problem is arrogance. Sadly, scientists believe they can cure all. And they've told patients, we can cure all. In my work in Austin, our state capital, when we work on stem cell research, we see that the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, the March of Dimes, the Alzheimer's, the Parkinson's, you name it, any advocacy group, wheels their patients around. Diabetes is particularly effective. They wheeled around 12-year-old twins who showed their track marks to legislators saying, if you vote for embryonic stem cell research, you could cure me of my track marks and my need for insulin and my diabetes. I mean, who's not going to support that? I mean, that goes right to the heart. But sadly, the people who are suffering believe this. And doctors can sell the dream of curing ills and living forever. They want to be able to engineer and sell the fountain of youth. Even our friend, Arlen Specter, buys it. Not that he's a great intellectual, but still. These are quotes from him. And I'm not convinced that Speaker Pelosi really is in touch with the Bible all that often. However, I'm not saying she's not, I'm just not convinced that she is. However, I really have never found embryonic stem cell research references in the scriptures. The science and biotech industry, they also want to sell you ease and convenience. Eventually, you could go to the store or the lab and pick the stem cell line to suit your ills and remedy your woes, just like you pick Tylenol versus Advil. So our cries of no benefits and enough is enough are insufficient because people will always have hope. I personally hope that one day I can take some type of injection to remedy my need for reading glasses. Reading glasses, sadly, are life support for me. I personally hope that one day my angelic 12-year-old niece Madeline, who has yet to walk or talk or swallow, benefits from remedies to grow the middle part of her brain without which she was born. But at what cost do I hope? At what cost do you hope? What are we willing to do if this door to embryonic stem cell research is completely opened? Even with the possibility of success, even with convenient cures and the promise of living longer, are you willing to walk through the door of killing one human being to benefit yourself or your mother, or even more difficult, your child? The scientist who did the IPS, induced pluripotent stem cell study that was widely published, he even recognized this is a dangerous path. When have we heard about ease and convenience in our movement before? You as citizens of Oregon, understand the ease and convenience. If you're not easy or convenient to care for, you're going. Abortion, too, is easy and convenient, and the terrified young girl can pursue her dream without a hiccup after she sacrifices one life to preserve her own. Do we suddenly drop or lessen our pro-life commitment because embryonic stem cell research can help our loved one? Why would we open this door? Let's look at what kind of world we will live in if we are willing to sacrifice our own values for our own interests. We hear about the promise and possibilities, the false hope, the dream. We must keep the door to the future open for this research. Let's look at our future with embryonic stem cell research. First of all, embryonic stem cell research on the in vitro embryos is a smokescreen to cloning. Scientists want permission from the general public and freedom from moral strings to continue or to engage further in embryonic stem cell research. But they don't actually want to use the IVF embryos. The IVF embryos are genetically altered or marred in the freezing and the thawing process. But they have to have authority to do that now. Because when the in vitro embryos run out, they will say, we were so close, the supply is out, now we have to make our own. Embryonic stem cell research is a smokescreen for human cloning. Make no mistake.